Sairam, Shri Sai Satcharitra, Chapter 3, Part 2. We start with the page number 12 of the English version of Shri Sai Satcharitra. This is the second part of the Sai Satcharitra. We read, contemplate, deliberate, dive deep into the meanings of each story or teachings or preachings. Try to understand the hidden meanings and jewels of Shri Satcharitra. Now, the heading of this paragraph is different works assigned to devotees. Shri Govinda Raghunath Thakurkar, Shri Hemadripan goes on. The Lord entrusts different works to different devotees. Some are given the work of building temples and mutts or ghats on the rivers. Some are made to sing the glories of God. Some are sent on pilgrimages. But to me was allotted the work of writing the Shri Sai Satcharitra. He goes on, being a jack of all trades but master of none. I was quite unqualified for this job. Then why should I undertake such a different task? Who can describe the true life of Sai Baba? Sai Baba's grace alone can enable one to accomplish this difficult work. So, when I took the pen in my hand, Sai Baba took away the egoism and he himself wrote his stories. The credit of relating these stories, therefore, goes to him and not to me. Though Brahman by birth, I lack the two eyes, that is, the sight or vision. Of Shruti and Smruti, and therefore was not at all capable of writing the Satcharitra. But the grace of the Lord makes a dumb man walk, enables a lame man to cross the mountain. He alone knows the ways of getting things done, and he likes as he likes. Neither the flute nor the harmonium knows how the sounds are produced. This is the concern of the player. The oozing of Chandrakanta jewel and the surging of the sea are not due to the jewel and the sea, but due to the rising of the moon. So this concludes the first paragraph. So what Shri Dhavorkar goes on to say is that first he says the supreme consciousness or the divine Guru, God, whomever we follow. There are different levels of devotion which has been explained earlier, but just to brush up how the devotion evolves in the heart of a devotee or a disciple. First, we go with some expectation to the Guru or the God, and we get what we aspire for or what we expect from the Guru. Then we have a devotion of gratitude. We thank the Guru, being fully aware that as and when the requirements and the necessities and wants of our lives are ever evolving, as they evolve, as they increase, as they come, there is our Guru who will always take care of us, who is always going to bless us with eternal state of contentment, which was said in the previous session. So that sense of contentment comes, and then comes the thought or the devotion where you say that, Lord, I want to be your instrument, I want to serve your cause. At that stage only, first, let us be very clear, your Guru, your God, your Lord does not need you. Guru doesn't need us. God doesn't need us to do his job. No. You should be worthy enough to be the instrument of Lord, to take the work of God to people, to be his instrument, to allow to you have to be so pure that the divine or the supreme consciousness works through you. Only then we are eligible to do Lord's work. When we attain that state of deserving enough to do Lord's work, at that point of time your Guru chooses to give you some work. At that point of time he says, look, okay, you do this, several things. Metaphorically, Shri Dabholkar has mentioned that some were assigned to build temples, mutts, ghats on the rivers, banks of the rivers, and some are made to sing the glories of God. And some are sent on pilgrimage. Pilgrimages not only for us, please understand, ancient days in Shastra, as per the Shastras, pilgrimages were from your native land to holy land. That commute from your native land to holy land was not the only purpose of pilgrimage. Understand what is pilgrimage. When you leave your native land and when you are going to your holy land, you need to spread the word of God. You have to continue to be his instrument. You have to speak about the glory of God to people whom you encounter. You have to spread the dharma all along. That is the meaning of pilgrimage. So when Shri Dabholkar has written that some are asked to go on pilgrimage, what does it mean? Pilgrimage doesn't mean that you go from your native land to some other place and then have the darshan, do the pujas and come back and live peacefully. No. On the way you have to do Lord's work. That is the true meaning of Tirtha Yatra. Right? Tirtha Yatra means the pilgrimage has a deep-rooted meaning as per the Shastras. Right? Now, but to me, what was allotted, Shri Dabholkar goes on to say, was to write this Shri Sai Satcharitra. Such a wonderful, work that we have in our hands. So this, please let me clarify here. What is mentioned in Shri Sai Satcharitra is just a fraction of the miracles, teachings of Shri Sai Baba, because he lived in Shirdi for 65 plus years. And every day, every moment, every breath was a miraculous one. Every moment he was teaching, healing, taking care of people, altering their realities favorably, adverse realities favorably, and so on and so forth. So, these are the things which are the excerpts or the few of the examples, stories, miracles and teachings which are in Satcharitra. The whole of it we cannot comprehend. So it goes on. So this compilation is what is bestowed upon Shri Dabholkar. So he recognizes and acknowledges that. Then he goes on, I was quite unqualified for this job. Then why should I undertake such a difficult task? Who can describe the true life of Sai Baba? Sai Baba's grace alone can enable one to accomplish this difficult task. Now, what happens here? श्री धाबोड़कर शुद्ध हिंदी में अगर कहे तो खुद की औकात जानते हैं. It means he knows where he stands. He knows his abilities. It is not about the writing abilities. It's not about the narration. It's not about the language. What happened? What were the teachings and what were the miracles and the hidden meanings of it? That has to be placed in a manner where it comes to us in its purest form, in its form that it has to come to us. That is the most difficult job. Otherwise, just writing is not a problem. Anybody can write. Here, what Shri Dhavodkar says, that is, it is impossible to take it verbatim. I can just write, but then how the actual true meaning of a particular story, teaching, or an example, or a miracle, how should it reach? That is the most challenging part. But fine, he says, I am not the doer. Shri Dhavodkar says, I am not the doer. He accepts. Here we can recognize the fact that Shri Dhavodkar was an embodiment of humbleness, humility, submission, surrenderance. Only then we deserve to become the instruments of God. If we have our own egoism, as a karta, as a doer, we are nowhere. We are nowhere and we will not reach anywhere. All our efforts, so-called spiritual efforts, are futile unless and until humbleness, humility, and ahankar, the ego in the negative context, the ahankar is not set aside and we don't give up on the doership, we cannot progress spiritually, nor we can be the instruments of God or Guru. Right? So he says, Sai Baba's grace alone can enable one to accomplish this difficult work. Right? He submits. So when I took the pen in my hand, Sai Baba took away my egoism. Imagine. When I take the pen, my ahankar goes. Baba takes away my ahankar. The beauty here, if we dive deep into the most wonderful thing, the example, classic example of surrenderance, we cannot beat Shri Dhavodkar. He says, even giving up that ahankar is not my act, that doership is also Lord's. Removing that ahankar, the ego in me, is also the Lord who is doing it. I am not the doer. That level of submission, that level of surrenderance, that depth of understanding. What is Dhavodkar is saying? Just I accept to be his instrument. Nothing more. He is the doer. He is even the remover of the ahankar in me. Such is the level of surrenderance of Shri Dhavodkar. Very rare. No wonder he, such a divine avatar, I would call Shri Dhavodkar as one of the greatest. So, such a great work was bestowed upon such a humble man. That's the beauty. So it goes on. And he himself wrote his stories. So I am not the doer. Baba himself is writing his stories. I am not the doer. The credit of relating these stories, therefore, goes to him and not to me. Please understand. Nishkama karma. What Sri Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. Nishkama karma, karma kar. फल की अपेक्षा मत कर, मैं जानता हूं कब देना है. और समर्पणा भाव. What it says is sense of surrenderance. He says very clearly the credit. We just read it as a credit. We all are dying for credit. I did it, I did it, I read, I spoke, I narrated, I explained. Keep that I-ness down. remember the highness under your feet, right? What does it mean? He is not just giving up on the credit. No. He is surrendering the karma phala. Here what we need to understand, how do we live our life? Our karma phala. He says, me, my karma is not mine. The doer is him. The fruits of the deed is his. When we absorb that kind of a virtue within us, you are devoid of your sins. You are devoid of your prarabdhas. Your sanchita karma recedes. Your prarabdha karma recedes. Your rinas go. Your rinana bandhas go. Because this is a virtue, anything and everything what you do. Henceforth, you are not taking the doership, neither are you aspiring for the fruits of that deed. The secret of liberation is here. How do we liberate ourselves? Because karma phala, two faces of a coin, is an eternal process which is continuously happening. Vartamana karma, present continuous tense. How do we go out? These questions are posed to me several times. Bhaiya, how do we come out of this Vartamana karma? Is it really possible? Here it is. The jewels of Satcharitra, lived by that example, Shri Dhabolkar. I am not the doer. He gives up the doership and the fruits of his deed. It's not mine, it is his. When we practice and live by these virtues, trust me, you are liberated from the clutches of birth and death. The cycle of birth and death, you are liberated because all your karmas, karma phalas, runas, ridana are absorbed by the master. That is what Shri Dhabolkar has said and displayed. See the beauty of Shri Satcharitra. Right? Therefore, he says the credit of relating these stories therefore goes to him and not to me. Karma phala gone. Though a Brahman by birth, I lack the two eyes, that is, sight or vision, two eyes, not in literal sense. Shruti and Smruti. I'll come to Shruti and Smruti. And therefore, was not at all capable of writing the Satcharitra. But the grace of the Lord makes a dumb man talk, enables a lame man to cross a mountain. He alone knows the way of getting things done as he likes. Neither the flute nor the harmonium knows how the sounds are produced. This is the concern of the player. The oozing of Chandrakant jewel and the surging of the sea are not due to the jewel and the sea, but due to the rising of the moon. So, Sankshipt mein, I haven't read. Now, here it is a beautiful thing. Shruti and Smruti. What is Shruti and Smruti? Whatever is practiced in Saipanth, whatever is practiced in our Shunya Kriya, as Saipanthis we do, the yogic order that we follow, all the practitioners will definitely agree with me when I state, nothing is read and recited and explained. All the Saipanthis who are learning everything about Satcharitra as well as the Yoga Kriya, they learn, practice and live by Shruti and Smruti. What is Shruti and Smruti? Simply put, orated, heard through somebody's oratory skills, memorized. The entire of Vedas, the four Vedas, the Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sama Veda, Atharvana Veda, were never written. They were always narrated and memorized, heard and internalized, and subsequently narrated, memorized. It passed down for thousands and thousands of years in this manner only. That is the most beautiful, that is the perfected way of learning something. Shruti and Smriti. That's what he says, Sri Dhaborkar. He's just made a mention of it. So explaining what is Shruti and Smriti. Nothing is written. And here the most important thing is, unlike the Chinese whisper, it starts from something and by the end it reaches the last person, the meaning has changed. It doesn't happen that way in our Shastras. In the Vedic culture, it is verbatim and saransh, that is the essence or the summary, and the tattva, essence, sattva, the hidden meanings. All these things are exactly like the way it started from the beginning. From the day the Vedas started, exactly that way, the meanings won't change. Words won't change. Recitations don't change. Sequences don't change. Pronunciations don't change. It is exactly like the first person who started till the people who have even to this day mastered it. Every single thing, the pronunciation, the meaning, the words, everything verbatim, nothing has changed from then till now. That is Shruti and Smriti. So that is something which I lacked. He was not a witness to all the miracles and the teachings in Shirdi during the days of 65 years of Baba's stay in Shirdi. Baba leaves his body in 1918. Sri Dhaborkar comes to Shirdi only in 1910. It is explained in chapter 1, Deciphering, why Sri Dhaborkar was summoned to Shirdi just 8-10 years before Baba shed his body. So he says, I was not a witness to anything and I lack Shruti and Smriti. Though I am a Brahman by birth, I lacked all those things. So the doership is again the Lord's. Just like he gives some examples, like it is his grace which can make the dumb person speak and the lame man cross a mountain. So this is a way of saying, and he goes on about other things like, instrumental devotion. Again he says, the harmonium or the flute or any musical instrument has nothing. It is just there. It is the one who masters it, who plays it. That is important. Pandit Ravi Shankar, the greatest of sitar maestro. If I or any one of us carry his sitar, doesn't mean that we can play like the way he did it. So likewise, he puts it in a very simple language. He says that the player, here what he says, the play is not just about the instruments, and he's giving you a metaphor about the instruments are lifeless and the player is important. Here he says the player, the Mayavi, the Leela. He says the entire Leela which is happening in this world. Everything is a Leela. Everything that is occurring in this world is a Leela, and the one who is in control of those occurrences in the world is Baba, Supreme Consciousness himself. So he is the one who is the doer. Don't fool yourself. He is not, whilst Sri Dhaborkar is talking about himself, he is also telling us, remain in your limits, Know your limits. Understand you're just an instrument. When you become an instrument, how you become an instrument, I just narrated few minutes ago. First, to become an instrument itself, we have to be deserving enough. We should have that level of spiritual evolution. Then the divine chooses you to be his instrument. Then once you are his instrument, despite that ahankar, keep it aside, just an instrument of Lord. Give up the doership, give up the karma and karma phala. So that is what it explains in the first paragraph of page number 12. Right. So we continue. The next heading is Baba's stories as beacon light. Right. Lighthouses are constructed at various places in the sea to enable the boatman to avoid rocks and dangers and make them sail safely. Sai Baba's stories serve a similar purpose in the ocean of worldly existence. They surpass the nectar in sweetness and make our worldly path smooth and easy to traverse. Blessed are the stories of the saints when they enter our hearts through the ears. The body consciousness or egoism and the sense of duality vanish. And when they are stored in our heart, doubts will dissipate, pride of the body will fall, and wisdom will be stored in abundance. Beautiful. Just few lines of this paragraph where he says, we know what the work of the lighthouses. Now he says that Baba's stories, they are the guiding light. They will navigate our lives. They will navigate our lives safely so that you don't collide. And they will navigate a ship, that is our life, in this worldly existence, in the Bhavasagara and the Bhavasagara. You just sail through without any collisions as long as you are sticking to Baba's stories. Right? Your worldly existence will become very easy to live. He says, metaphorically, they surpass the nectar in sweetness, sweeter than the sweetest. Those are the stories. And make our worldly path smooth and easy to traverse. Now he says, blessed are the stories of the saints when they enter our hearts through the ears. Please understand, here he is teaching us and telling us how to internalize the stories. It is not just stated for the sake of stating. You hear the stories, typically we say we hear from one ear and leave it from the other, but he says don't do it. Baba's stories are not so shallow, they're very deep. When you hear, store it in your heart. It should not go from the other ear. Or it should not get into your mind in contemplation of, trying to, negate it or trying to apply some stupid analogies and other things. Internalize it from your ears when you hear. Let it reach your heart. Feel it. That's what Sri Dhawarkar is saying. You hear it and you experience. In other words, he says, Shruti and Smriti. You heard, internalize. He has taught us how to read and internalize the stories of Sai Baba. because they are the guiding lights. That is the lighthouses in the ocean of worldly existence which will guide you at every point. Internalize it. Shruti, Smriti, Shruti, Smriti. That is what Sri Dhavolkar has told us. That hear it and internalize it. Once you do that, when they enter your heart, very important, it should enter your heart, not your mind, right? The body consciousness or ego and the sense of duality will vanish. And when they are stored in the heart, doubts will dissipate. Just in these two lines. The philosophy of Advaita of Adi Shankaracharya is very beautifully explained. What he says, the body consciousness or egoism, aham, the body consciousness, the aham, people who feel that the body is we, false. And the sense of duality will vanish. Advaita. When I had mentioned, to people that, Baba's philosophy was always Advaita and then Shunya, nothingness. I was questioned, how do you say that? He has never used the word Advaita in Sai Satcharitra. Here it is. Baba doesn't have to come and tell us that, I am an Advaiti. That is a philosophy. People who follow me are by default are Advaitis. He doesn't have to say. It is implied. Duality will vanish. What did Adi Shankaracharya state? 4 statements of Advaita. Prajnanam Brahman. Consciousness itself is Brahman. Aham Brahmasmi. The egoism, not the negative egoism. The individual self, the not ahankar, aham. It's different. The individual self itself is Brahman. I quote Sri Adi Shankaracharya. Tat Tvam Asi, the third one. First is Prajnanam Brahman, the conscience. That itself is Brahma. People say, am I the conscious, am I the soul, what am I, this and that. He says, don't get confused. They're all the same, different names. The same you as a conscious, if you call yourself, Prajnanam Brahman. The same you, if you say that you are the Aham, Aham Brahmasmi. The same supreme consciousness and you are one and the same. Tat Tvam Asi. Tat Tvam Asi. And finally he says, people who say, call themselves the true selves as Atma, he says, I am Atmanam Brahman. So the Atma itself is Brahma. Very clearly he says that 4 statements here, Sri Dhavolkar puts it very clearly that Advaita, dualism goes. Just by hearing, internalizing and remembering the stories of Baba, our ego or individual consciousness just vanishes. Non-dual existence will pervade. The Advaita is the philosophy which Sri Sainath Maharaj has endorsed and said. And when they are stored in the heart, that is once you have internalized, that is, when you have understood, and it is well within you, you will never forget that. Right? These stories, you will remember in your difficult times of our lives. Some of the stories will come from within because it's within our heart. It is stored in our heart. Doubts will dissipate. Pride of the body will fall, and wisdom will be stored in abundance. Doubts. In Hindi they say, हर बीमारी का इलाज है, शक का कोई इलाज नहीं. What it means, transliteration is, there is a cure for almost every disease. But this doubt is such a disgusting thing. Because as I always say, fear and faith cannot coexist, neither the faith and doubt. Either you believe or you don't believe. Don't be in between. Doubt is something I believe, yet I don't know whether I should believe or not. Scratching your head. That will vanish. The doubt is such a horrible thing, it will not let you stay in peace. There is no doubt in reasoning. There is nobody stopping you from reasoning. Nobody is stopping you from getting to the bottom of the subject. Do what you have to do. Gnana Bhakti Karma, we always say rational understanding, logical understanding. Do everything. But when you understand everything, stop doubting. Put that doubt into rest. So that's what happens when you have these stories embedded in your heart. Doubt vanishes. So that's what Sri Dhaborkar goes on to say. Pride of the ego will fall and wisdom will be stored in abundance. Pride of the ego, pride of the body, sorry. I am so good looking. I am so this. So much engrossed with the body. The pride of that body, being proud of your physical appearance, will just fall. That's one of the major impediment in your spiritual progression. So that will also drop. What are all the benefits of reading, internalizing, memorizing, and storing those stories in our heart? These are the things which happens. And the most important, these are things when we dive deep into, it gives so much of a deep meaning. Wisdom will be stored in abundance. What is wisdom? He doesn't say that, just everything is done. But what is wisdom? He doesn't suggest, it doesn't stop there. Even wisdom will be stored in abundance. We always hear few words in our spiritual path. A state of samadhi. Some people, nirvikalpa samadhi, nirvichara samadhi. Some people talk about Satchidananda. Of all the things, there is one state. That one state where neither happiness nor sorrow will affect you. Neither joy nor sorrow, nor happiness nor sadness, not pleasant realities nor unpleasant realities. You are always in a state of calmness, peace. That state is explained or said in our yogic path in one word. That state of being in an absolute calmness, it is called as Sat Chit Ananda, absolute state of bliss. How do you attain a state of Satchidananda? Always in a state of bliss. That happens with one thing which comes from wisdom, and that state of wisdom is called as absolute stillness. Sthita prajna. The word of being someone who is very prudent, who's got his wisdom in place, completely bloomed wisdom, state of wisdom is the one who is called as is Sthita Prajna. Sthita Prajnasta, a state of wisdom, wisdom which occurs due to understanding that everything is an illusion, the supreme consciousness and a fraction of that supreme consciousness, which is me, is the only reality. Brahmam Satyam Jagan Mithyam. When you realize that, that state of witness, that is a state of wisdom. That Sthita Prajna, you become a Sthita Prajna only when you have wisdom as your virtue. That he says that you will also be a Sthita Prajna because wisdom will be stored in abundance in your heart. That is what Sri Dhabarkar said. You imagine all the yogic path, whatever siddhis, whatever stages in our yogic path, whatever you need to attain is all mentioned here. And when you read, understand, live by and internalize and memorize Shri Sai Satcharitra, your yogic path is complete. That's what Sri Dhabarkar says. And in highlights, he says, the description of Baba's pure fame and the hearing the same with love will destroy the sins of the devotees, and therefore this is the simple sadhana for attaining salvation. He says, reading Satcharitra, understanding Sri Sai Satcharitra, internalizing Sri Sai Satcharitra, internalizing the stories narrated in Satcharitra, memorizing that, and in other words, living by it, is the best sadhana one can do. One of the best sadhanas, and that in itself is enough for us to attain salvation. To that extent, this Sri Sai Satcharitra, Sri Dhabarkar says, can even give us salvation. See the depth, see the importance of it. That's why I keep saying, doesn't matter how many times you read Satcharitra, from first page to last page, 52 chapters. No point. You read it just once, as long as you understand, as long as you dive deep into it, as long as you internalize, as long as you draw the nectar of it, as long as you live by it, then just read once enough. Your Parayan of starting on Thursday to ending on the following Thursday is of no avail. Excuse me. Unless and until it is lived by. So he goes on, he narrates a little bit of Purana here. The sadhana of Krita Yuga, Satya Yuga, Krita Yuga, was Samadhama, tranquility of mind and body. Sama, Samadhana, Dhamma, tranquility of mind and body. For Treta Yuga, for simple understanding, is the days of Sri Lord Rama. For Treta Yuga, sacrifice, that is Havan, and also the sacrifice in terms of Treta Yuga, people used to sacrifice everything of their own for the cause of Dharma. Treta Yuga is one thing which we need to understand was a self-governed society. Nobody had to bring in rules, regulations and laws in Treta Yuga. People knew what is right and what is wrong. Nobody had to tell them this is right, this is wrong. They used to follow on their own. Dharma was internalized. There was no imposition of rules and regulations in Treta Yuga. That was a self-governed society. Now, when he says, we need to understand, we just read, okay, Treta Yuga is sacrifice. What is sacrifice? Not just yajnas and things like that. What all did Sri Lord Rama do? Sacrifice, sacrifice, sacrifice. What did Sita Mata do? Sacrificed. What did Lakshmana do? Sacrificed. What did Lakshmana's wife do? Sacrificed. Bharata sacrificed. Shatrughna sacrificed. Hanumanji sacrificed. Vali, Sugriva sacrificed. The Treta Yuga was all about teaching us the virtue of sacrifice. Nothing comes about dharma. Like in Dwapar Yuga, Lord Krishna says, fight for dharma. Dharma sanstapana ke liye lado. Whereas in Treta Yuga, it was very clear. For the sake of dharma, sacrifice yourself. That is what it means. We read, understand please. Right? Treta Yuga was sacrifice. For Dwapara worship. Worship, ritualistic worship, came in Dwapara Yuga. And for Kali Yuga, the contemporary age that we are in, present day, it is singing of the name and glory of the Lord. That's all is necessary. As the human race is degenerating, Lord is bringing simpler and simpler and simpler ways. He is simplifying things, the supreme consciousness of the universe. It is simplifying because we are becoming shallow and shallow in our understanding of spirituality, ourselves, our true selves. So as we are going down, becoming shallow in our understanding, even the supreme consciousness of the universe is making our life easier by saying that, okay, you just do this. First sacrifice. In Dwapara, he says, no sacrifice. You have to fight. You can't even fight. Do the bhakti. Worshipping is enough. Then further in Kali Yuga, at least hear, listen, sing the name of the Lord. That's enough. You will attain moksha. That is how the supreme consciousness so mercifully is altering the necessities of the human race to evolve. Right? This last sadhana is open to all the people of the four varnas. The other sadhanas, for example, yoga tyaga, sacrifice, yoga to become one with, union is yoga, yoga is not yogasana, yoga means to become one with, union means, transliteration is, yoga is union, with whom? Disintegration of your body and mind and integration of your conscious with the supreme consciousness is yoga, not yogasana. Yoga, tyaga, attaining oneness by sacrificing, that is difficult. Dhyana, meditation is difficult, though I try to push everybody to meditate. And fortunately in Saipanth and Shunya Kriya, people who could not even meditate for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, sit in meditation for an hour and a half. So at least that is there, though it is difficult in the worldly eyes, but it is not so. And the dhyana dharana, concentration, are very difficult to practice. Shri Dhabodkar says, this is for the common man. Satcharita's way of evolving spiritually is very simple. But singing and hearing the stories of the glory of the Lord, Sri Sai Baba, is very easy. Which is so true. Understand, in this thing, Satcharita, it is not that you are getting carried away with only Madhura Bhava, which is like emotional. You are not just getting emotional. You are also understanding. The beauty of Sai Satcharita, you can experience the spiritual evolution within. The experience happens through reading Satcharita, Understanding Satcharitra, internalizing Satcharitra, memorizing Satcharitra stories, and living by. It is not just a Puranic way of Madhura Bhava, worship, and then sing and the glory of Lord and God and then move on. No. Here it truly evolves. That's what he says. It is so simple and easy. Reading the stories and singing and looking at the glory of our Lord Shri Sai Baba, which is very easy. Now, here there is one thing which I want to explain because this is very crucial, very important for this world. Here he mentions everybody is entitled, all the four Varnas. The Varnas are, Varnashram is four. The Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. That is Varnashram. But it is the most misconstrued. In our Chintan Manthan session, we are going to take up Varnashram as a subject discussion and deliberation separately. But here, Sankshipt mein, as a summary, if I can say, nobody is a Brahmana or a Vaishya or a Kshatriya or a Shudra by birth. We are all the same. Nobody is any of these at birth. Please throw this misconception out of your minds. We are born. That is the only reality. Our practices, our career, our way of earning the livelihood, whatever it depends on, the prerequisites of the same defines our Varna. Just because one person's parents are Brahmins by caste, so-called Brahmins, he or she doesn't become a Brahmin, no. That's the problem with the word. Brahmana means the one who has Brahma Jnana. The one who earns his livelihood by uplifting Dharma and spreading the true meaning of Shastras, teaching the society, performing the rituals, havans and yajnas. They are Brahmins. Just because you are born into a Brahmin family doesn't mean you are a Brahmin. No, that's utter nonsense. A Brahmin today, if he becomes a chartered accountant, with due respect, anybody who is a service provider to the society is Shudra. Shudra is not bad. Shudra and Brahmana or Vaishya and Kshatriya, they are all of the same level. Nobody is superior. Get rid of this mindset. We are avadhutas. We understand rationally. Your karma will define your varna. Your deed will define the varna which you belong to, not your birth. With your profession. Someone whose parents are service providers to the society, in other words, Shudra. Shudra is not bad. Shudra is as equally entitled as a Brahmana or a Kshatriya or a Vaishya. It is all messed up last 400-500 years ago. A service provider to the society is Shudra. So his son can take up the Brahmanical work and he is a Brahmana. A Brahmana's son or a daughter takes up the arms, fights and wages a war, is a Kshatriya. A Kshatriya's son, a warrior who's a protector of Dharma, gets into business, he becomes a Vaishya. Varnashram are not based on the bloodline, no. It is our karma. The profession that we choose defines our Varna. Anyway, this is in Sankshipta. We dive deep into Varnashram at one of our sessions in Chintan Manthan, discussion and deliberation, right? So that's what he means here, right? We go on. We have only to turn our attention towards them. The listening to and singing of the stories will remove the attachment to the senses and their objects. And we will make the devotees, and they will make the devotees dispassionate and will ultimately lead them to self-realization. Here again, in Shunya Kriya, we always say we don't concentrate. Our dhyana is a pattern of deconcentration, but attention. Attention is different from concentration. Attention is devoid of karma. Shunya Kriya very clearly explains. In Shunya Kriya, it is very well explained. So we will get there. So here he says, we have only to turn our attention clear towards them, the stories. The listening to this, listening to and singing of the stories will remove the attachment to the senses and their objects, and will make the devotees dispassionate, and will ultimately lead them to self-realization. So beautiful. Three things are going to happen here. One, it is going to remove the attachment to the senses, Arishad Vargas. Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya will vanish. The illusionary effect of Maya will vanish. Second, it says, they will make a devotees dispassionate. Vairagya. People have a major misconception about Vairagya. Vairagya is not disillusioned. Vairagya doesn't mean that you are disillusioned. Vairagya means you have understood and you are in a state of dispassion. You are dispassionate towards anything in this worldly existence. Very clearly he says, Vairagya, that comes to us. Because disillusion, being in a state of disillusion is a very bad state. If you are disillusioned with the world or with the relationship or with anything, and if you think that that is the reason for you to progress spiritually, it's a non-starter. When you reason out a state of disillusionment, when you are disillusioned and reason it out and understand that it is just an illusion, smile, stay in a state of Sthita Prajna, Satchitananda, and move on and move within. That is dispassion. That is Vairagya. There is a specific video on Vairagya. I suggest everybody to go through that specific video, Vairagya. So that dispassionate one becomes Vairagi and will ultimately lead them to self-realization. Self-realization, people have different notions. That one fine day there will be a light striking at the crown of our head or right in the middle of our forehead, and there is suddenly light and all that utter nonsense. No. Self-realization is a process. It doesn't happen one fine day. It happens over a period of time. Self-realization, as the name or the word or the statement says it, states and explains itself, realizing oneself. Who am I? I am not the body. I am not the name. I am not the title which I carry. So who am I? Where have I come from? Since I am not the body, I am here, but I have come from somewhere. Who is that I, and where have I come from? Now, what is the purpose of my life? So the question comes, why am I here? I don't know where I have come from. I don't know who I am. I don't know why I am here. But at least what am I supposed to do? Eat, grow up, earn money, have children, get married, have children, die someday. Is that the life? No. So what am I supposed to do? And the most important thing is, the death is for sure for everybody. So when I shed the body, where am I going to go? Right? That is the fifth one. And finally, since I have originated from something, that is where I belong. So whom do I belong to? So once you find an answer for these 6 questions, you have attained self-realization. You will find the answer for those 6 questions in this Sai Satcharitra, is what Shri Dhavolkar says when he says you will have your self-realization. The devotees may now easily read and hear these stories of Sai Baba, and while doing so, meditate on him. His form, and thus attain devotion to Guru and God, Sri Sai Baba. Get dispassion and self-realization. In the preparation and writing of this work, Satcharitra, it is Sai Baba's grace which has accomplished everything, making use of me as a mere instrument. He declares himself to be an instrument only, nothing above, nothing below. Right? So, today we will end this deciphering and Satcharitra at this, and I want to keep one small portion which is like the devotees may now easily read and hear stories. From there on, we will take the next week of Sai Baba, and while doing so, meditate on him, his form, and thus attain devotion to Guru and God, dispassion and self-realization. So I really want to take that as a separate subject on how to meditate on Sai Baba, because that's going to be pretty elaborate. And what was the form of Sai Baba? How he was to look at. So we are terminating this chapter 3 in this paragraph, and we will take it up in the next session. Okay? Thank you very much. Sai Ram. Sai Ram.